Hello again. Well, I started packing my bags, getting stuff together to go back to Nepal to head east. Actually, I don't have a lot of stuff. I don't have a lot of stuff of my own to pack. I'm going to take my phone and something to record some videos for you. But mostly it's stuff that people have asked me to bring from the West. Because of course in Nepal we can't get all these things. Computers and all these devices. It's all here in the material West. It's kind of odd, really, because we should be able to get by without these things. But really, there are these uses. There are uses for technology. There's uses for the internet. I mean, in retreat, we don't have television, we don't have the news, we don't have internet. Of course, we broadcast teachings online over Zoom and that sort of thing. And then people have to contact their families in the West. So it's very useful. And these things can be beneficial as well. But in many ways, to a practitioner, then these things are basically an obstacle. They cause problems, they're difficult. Also, our exposure to Western media, etc., can be very problematic for a meditator. For a meditator, well, for a beginner anyway, then you need to have some kind of quietude, some silence of the mind. You don't want to be distracted by all kinds of things. Now, it's not that this kind of silence isn't necessary. It's very important. But ultimately, meditation, for a true meditator, isn't about whether there's silence or stillness or thoughts or non-thoughts. That's all beginner stuff. For a true meditator, they don't need these things. So somebody who has experience in their meditation, but also has confidence, then they can go anywhere. They can go off into the city, or they can go off into the wilderness. Makes no difference. And also, they're at ease with that. They can be in the company of others. And they can be alone. It's a sign of somebody who has real practice. When somebody who doesn't need worldly comforts, someone who doesn't need a home, a fixed abode, a place to live, stable community, somebody who doesn't need those things is actually quite spiritually advanced. But for us beginners, then, we need to isolate ourselves because we get distracted too easily. We get taken away by news in the world, by news of our family, incidents, situations. These things preoccupy our minds. And one thing very striking I've noticed that most Westerners are very preoccupied with social media, news media, this information. It kind of takes away all your mindfulness. And it's not good for a meditator. So they teach you need to go off into the wilderness. It says rely on the wilderness. And the Tibetans are great at this. They have all kinds of retreats. The terms are like ritral, naktral, gangtral. What these mean are, it's like in the middle of a mountaintop, in the middle of a mountain, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a forest, or in the middle of the snow, like Milarepa did. They're great at this sort of thing. So, if you can practice anywhere, then why do you specifically need to go to retreat? Well, the point is, can you practice anywhere? Are you able to sit on the street in the middle of London and meditate? Or remain in meditative equipoise? Whether you're sitting physically and cross-legged or not is not the point. It's where's your mind? So ultimately, although we need this isolation of the mountains, of the forests, being in the middle of nowhere, we do need these things. But ultimately, it's about isolation of mind. That doesn't mean that the mind has to be quiet or still. It can happen when the mind is busy. What matters is whether or not we cling to these appearances. And it's to the extent that we cling to appearances that we will experience suffering. That's how it is. And one thing you'll notice is somebody who is a good meditative practitioner will be very easygoing. They'll be okay with anything. They can doss out in the street with the beggars, or They can go off into the middle of a swamp in Estonia. They can do these things, and it doesn't really affect their way of thinking. They don't get carried away. But for someone who goes into the big city and gets carried away by the culture and all the busyness and loses their mindfulness, then that sort of individual, that beginner, then that person needs to go into retreat. I mean, they need to physically isolate themselves. So we have physical isolation, we have verbal isolation, and we have mental isolation. And the physical isolation is simple. You go off somewhere, in the middle of nowhere, or you lock yourself away in your apartment. And you do this in order to create the right conditions so that you can practice, you can meditate. Verbal isolation is keeping silence. It's a wonderful practice. It's really beneficial. It's really beneficial in terms of our actions, but also in terms of our mind. Because a lot of negativity arises out of not isolating ourselves verbally. By letting our mouth get carried away and saying all kinds of things, it leads to arguments, it leads to a lot of negativity. So, physical isolation helps us not to be distracted, and also stops us from engaging in negativities. Because when we're with our friends, then we want to go out for a drink, right? There's nothing wrong with having a drink. I mean, some of the old masters used to drink a lot. My own teacher, Akong Rinpoche, loved whiskey, and he could drink it by the barrel, and he never got drunk. But I'm not like that. If I get drunk, that's it, I'm finished. I lose all my mindfulness. I mean, there's a great story about a monk, and there was, let's say, an ill-intentioned woman, or maybe she was a kind of demoness, and she wanted to get this monk to break his vows. And so she pretended she was really distraught, and she said, "If you don't break one of your vows, then I'm going to kill myself." Now, of course, this monk was good. He cared about people, and he had compassion, and he didn't want to see her suffering. So he thought very well. He thought, well, if I kill somebody, that would be really bad. That's not good. I can't do that. And I can't steal. And I can't go off and sort of break my celibacy. And lying isn't good. But if I have a drink, then that's probably the least negative of all these things. Right? There's the four main precepts: not to kill, not to steal, not to lie, and not to engage in sexual misconduct. But there's this fifth one, and that's added on. It's not really a natural negativity, but the Buddha prescribed it and said that we all had to keep this rule. So he decided, well, this fifth one, this not drinking, I could break that, and that wouldn't be so bad. Well, this is what happened. He got drunk, and then after he got drunk, he broke all the other four vows. Right? Because when we are intoxicated, when we lose control of our mind. Of course, the great practitioners of the past, skilled meditators, they can handle these things. But ordinary beings like us can't cope. So we need physical isolation, because we're influenced by our friends and by the environment. You know, if everyone's wandering around with an iPhone and a nice car, well, then we start wanting these things. If we see everywhere we go all kinds of different food, like in the West, it's not something I noticed in Nepal. I mean, in the same day, you can eat sushi, pizza, taco, spaghetti, whatever you like. It's all there. It's not only there. If you walk from point A to point B, you see 10 different types of restaurants. Well, it's not like that in Nepal, you know. If you go off trekking somewhere, you're going to get the same meal in every hotel, because they've only got what's there. You know, the same vegetables, the same food. Some places, like on the Everest trek, and they have to carry in stuff, especially for the Westerners. Some of these Nepali Sherpas, you know, they carry things on their back, and you say, well, what are you carrying? And it's a barrel full of cheese, for example. Why? Because the Westerners can't do without cheese. Very strange. But in the West, it's everywhere. And it takes away our mindfulness. We get drawn away by our desire. You know? Seeing things triggers desires in us. I used to drink, I used to smoke dope. So if I spent a lot of time with people drinking and getting stoned, pretty sure that eventually I would get carried away myself. So you need a bit of isolation. So for me, my physical isolation are my robes. Because as long as I'm wearing these robes, then I can't really just be random. I mean, people do. You know, I could always put on some layperson's clothes and go off and have a party or something. But I can't do that. It's difficult, right? It's difficult to break your commitments. So these things kind of protect you in the same way as isolating yourself in a retreat center can protect you. And then having verbal isolation stops a lot of negativity as well. Because almost as soon as we open our mouth, then we start criticizing others. Or we start telling little white lies, and they turn into big lies. So verbal isolation is very important. But the root of it all is mental isolation. And that doesn't mean shutting thoughts out. I mean, most people think meditation is about stopping thought. It's not about that. Mental isolation means your natural state of mind is not affected by the appearances that arise to you. When you see something beautiful, then you're not carried away by it. When you hear some horrible sound, it doesn't make you angry. This is mental solitude, and this is what we're working for. So there are those people who are able to do this. Like I say, it doesn't matter if they're in the wilderness or if they're in the middle of a big city. It's the same for them, because they've achieved mental stability. And the problem is, most of us aren't there. We might kid ourselves on, but in reality, then we're very fickle, and we're easily led astray. And again, as I said many times before, it doesn't help just being told, well, you're fine the way you are. You don't need to put any effort in. You're already Buddha. We do. We've got negativities. We get angry. We're desirous. We covet the possessions of others. We like stuff. We're attracted to things. We have these problems. And until we have overcome these issues, then we will need to exert ourselves. And we will need to seek isolation, whether that be mental isolation, verbal isolation, or physical isolation. I know that many people have practiced Vipassana. When I say Vipassana, I mean these kind of retreats, 10-day retreats where you keep silence. And they find it very beneficial. I've never done it myself, but there is one learned professor in our monastery who used to regularly attend these Vipassana retreats. You know, you do one set of 10 days, another set of 10 days. And most people find it very beneficial. I encourage you to try this practice at some point. I mean, many people have experimented with it. But just say to yourself, well, for one morning, I won't speak. Or for one day, I won't speak. Or for 1 week, I won't speak. Now, that's difficult when you're in society, Western society. People won't understand what you're doing. They'll think you've gone strange. And it's difficult enough in a retreat center. I was lucky because when we were in the retreat center in Scotland, then it was quite acceptable to practice silence. But in Nepal, then it seems that there's not such a tradition for this. And also, if you have responsibilities in the community, then it's very difficult to carry those out without having to speak. But when you are able to, you see the benefits. Because it's often the case that our mind follows our words or our speech. And so by talking about things, we reinforce our feelings and our kind of disposition. If you get into a conversation about somebody, if something they've seen on social media, then it's very easy to start getting kind of a little bit stirred up, even a little bit of upset, especially these days in the West. Everything's so polarized. I mean, all you have to do is say Trump, Biden, and then about 50% of the population are already upset. So it just goes to show how important this verbal isolation is. Also, I find it a bit strange because many people, they find it very easy to criticize being in retreat, even though they've never really tried it themselves. They don't know what it's about. Unless you've actually experienced it, then you can't really say what the benefits are and what the drawbacks are. But there's this general feeling many people have, is that by going off into a mountain retreat, you're somehow abandoning people. You're being selfish. Especially for Westerners. When I said that I was going into retreat 13 years ago, many people get the idea that a retreat is somewhere where you go, you do yoga, and you get kind of like therapy, like Reiki and that sort of thing, and you chill out. And so they think you're very selfish when you go into retreat. And then people who know a little bit more, for example, people who are Buddhists, etc., they think, why are you hiding away in retreat? Why don't you take something that you've learned in Buddhism and use it to benefit others? Go out in the community and help people. But I think you'll find this difficult to understand, but this is a very, very worldly view. Why is it a worldly view? Because it doesn't account for past and future lives and karma, cause and effect. Also, it makes the assumption that we are able to help others on a profound level just being who we are, the way we are, just being kind of nice, relaxed people. That is beneficial, but ultimately that doesn't bring long-term, lasting benefits. It's merely worldly. In order to truly benefit others, you have to develop these transcendent qualities. You have to develop these profound insights into the nature of reality. And it's based on that and interacting with the disposition of another that you are able to truly benefit them. And when I say truly benefit them, I don't just mean in this life. And if you don't even believe in future lives, well, there's still a way you can conceive this. And that's because you can recognize that somebody who has made profound and lasting changes in their character is able to benefit others. And in order to do that, you need special methods. It's not just going to happen sitting around and doing nothing special. At this point, I wanted to clear something up, because I get the idea that many people think that I am criticizing these teachers like Eckhart Tolle and Rupert Spira and Mooji and these sort of teachers. I don't think bad of these individuals. I think very highly of them. In fact, I think that they benefit quite a few people. That's only a guess. I don't know for sure. I really don't know much about them. My point isn't that they are charlatans or con men or that they're lying to people. I don't think they are. The point is, my belief is that when they say awakened or enlightened, that they're using this term very loosely and using it purely in a worldly context, a mundane context. So for example, somebody like Eckhart Tolle experienced great depression in his early life, sort of unhappiness, mental illness, and then by doing a kind of shamatha meditation, this basic sitting meditation, or some kind of contemplation, let's say, then he kind of resolved all his neurotic issues in his life. And so for him, that was a kind of awakening. Now, I don't know, actually, if he claims to be awakened. That's what people say. I don't know if he actually claims to be enlightened or awakened. But my point is that he's using this term loosely, and it doesn't refer to actual transcendence. It merely refers to an improvement in our mundane life. This term awakening. It's like I was an alcoholic, and now I'm no longer an alcoholic. I've overcome that issue. I've transcended that problem. I have awakened. If you use it in those terms, that's fine. But it is the case that students will follow in the footsteps of their teachers. So what a teacher is like, then those students will also become like that. And so what is very telling to me is that many, many people in the entourage of people like Rupert Spira and Eckhart Tolle claim to have awakened. Again, they could be using this term very loosely. I've had some mundane improvement in my neuroses. I feel a bit better, therefore I'm awakened. Well, if you use the term like that, that's okay, I've got no problem with that. But for somebody who is serious about the spiritual path, it doesn't benefit them in any way to assume, come to the belief that they're awakened when they really haven't made any significant progress. And that's the way I see it. So if the teacher says, it's very simple, sit in the present moment and you will be awakened. I did it, you can do it too. And of course, many of their students are going to feel like they've also accomplished that. And there are short-term benefits to this belief. I think, oh, my problems are solved, I'm enlightened. I've realized the true nature. All my issues are resolved. And you become a sort of better person, more relaxed, more easygoing, less neurotic, that's for sure. The problem is that in the future, when these mundane unhappiness resurfaces, and sometimes it will resurface with great intensity. I mean, you tell yourself, I'm awakened, I've gone beyond suffering, everything's fine. And then some point down the line, somebody very important to you dies, and it totally destroys your life. Well, that will shake up the foundations of your mistaken belief, right? And for many people, then it leads them to lose faith in the spiritual path, because they sort of feel like they've somehow been cheated. I'm awakened. This was supposed to solve all my problems, but actually, it hasn't helped me. That's quite dangerous. In worldly terms, it's dangerous. But it's very dangerous for somebody on the sincere spiritual path. Somebody who is seeking actual transcendence, who wants to come to understand the profound nature of reality, what it's all about. And I'm very clear, these teachers, like Eckhart Tolle, Rupert Spira, haven't recognized the essential point of mind. Or if they have, they don't talk about it. They teach their students something else. But I mean, I have no doubt that they're not awakened. And I also have no doubt they don't understand this essential point of mind, this true nature of reality. I mean, even if I try to explain it to you, it's going to be very difficult to understand. It's not just a matter of understanding a few words, like, there is no separation. I am one with the cosmos. Well, we logically can come to that conclusion. But this doesn't actually benefit us in our daily lives, right? Because when a rushing freight train is coming at us, what we need is a belief that that train exists, and we need to jump very quickly out of the way. If we don't, we're just going to be, we're extinct, we're splattered, right? So this belief that there's no separation, the I doesn't exist, there's no self, and all this is of no benefit to us. Is of no benefit to us whatsoever. And that's because it's not a realization. It's just playing around with a few concepts. You know? Because when you cross the road, you look both ways. Because you don't want to get hit by a car. So there's no point in saying, I don't exist. Just wait a second. I've got to check if I'm going to get run over. I don't exist, and then cross the road. It doesn't make any sense. And so this kind of belief that we've realized non-duality, this belief that we've realized no self, is not practical. It doesn't benefit us in any way. The Tibetan Buddhist practice is completely practical and completely useful. What you do is you work with your actual, uncontrived view of the world, your world view. That's what you look at. And you start off by accepting where you are. So they talk about, we're here on the earth. We're kind of in the middle. There's these beings that are better than us, and there's beings that are much worse off than us, and we're here at a very reasonable level. We have to recognize that first. And then we need to make a kind of goal, an aim, to improve ourselves. And also, that applies to our general view, the way we perceive the world. First, we look at how we actually perceive the world. Yes, I believe that the freight train exists, and I'm definitely going to jump out of the way, because I don't want to get splattered. That's honest. That's a truthful view. To get from that point to the point where this train can no longer hurt me is not a simple matter. It's not just a matter of somebody telling me, that freight train, that doesn't exist. It's not separate from you. There's no other. It doesn't help me one bit, right? It's still going to kill me. So that's an extreme example, but it applies equally to our meditation. You can sit there in meditation and think, I don't exist, I don't exist, I don't exist. What matters is, when you get off your cushion, whether you still have that view, whether that is a real view that you hold, or if it's just fooling yourself. So for the most part, the Dharma, the spiritual path that these individuals are teaching, Eckhart Tolle, Rupert Spira, etc., it's just a kind of psychotherapy. Right? Somebody can be very, very kind of mixed up and confused because early on in their life they experience some trauma. They cling to that very strongly, right? So the psychotherapist, now I have to say I don't know much about this, I've never really been to a therapist, but they will sort of talk to them and say, well, that happened many, many years ago. It doesn't exist now. So they'll kind of reason with them. So we'll talk about the different ways in which we shouldn't cling to this event as being pertinent. It's no longer relevant. And then slowly, if there's this confidence and relationship with the therapist, then that individual might kind of let go of their suffering a bit. And so what these modern spiritual teachers are doing is basically that. It's a form of induction. It's like kind of hypnotism, really. You know, you can accept, if you don't exist, you're fine, there is no self, so therefore you cannot suffer. It's just people talking to you, trying to convince you of something, with induction. I mean, I know about these things because I used to be a yoga teacher, so I'm very aware of these kind of processes that are used in order to calm people down, make them relax. And that's all it is. And the reason why that's all it is because it doesn't have any lasting or profound effect. So then for somebody who has spiritual qualities, then they have this natural kind of way of being, easygoing, open-minded way of going. And for them, then naturally, they can deal with whatever circumstances arise. So there's this Estonian woman, right? Helena. Okay. I think a lot of people think she's crazy. I don't think she's crazy. But to me, she has more success on her spiritual path than probably 90% of the people that I've seen online. Because she's able to put her beliefs into practice, and also she's fine with that. So, as you may know, then she's basically homeless. She's made herself intentionally homeless, just as the yogis of the past did, like Milarepa, etc. They just wandered around in the wilderness. They didn't need a house. They didn't need refinements. They didn't need luxury. They didn't even need food. Now, is she a spiritually advanced person? I don't know. I doubt it. The fact that she's able to give up her home and go into homelessness in order to meditate and be at one with the cosmos says a lot to me. There's a great contrast between what she is doing and what somebody who claims to be awakened, who lives 100% worldly life, with comfort and luxury, and isn't able to give up anything. You have to put your money where your mouth is, right? There's no point in talking about these high dharmas if you yourself aren't able to walk the walk. So Helena is able to walk the walk. I don't think she's a Buddha. This is what we call practice. Practice is a practical application. It's not just a conceptual dallying with ideas. It's actually doing something. It's having an ability. And primarily, it's having this isolation of mind. So not being affected by our environment. Remaining focused on our object of meditation, whatever that may be. But it's the same. When it came to Milarepa, then worldly people thought he was crazy. There's a story, Milarepa was on the side of the road, and some Tibetan women went by, and they looked at him and just saw a filthy beggar. And they made this aspiration, may I never be like him. But to others, Milarepa was a Buddha. And there's no doubt he was accomplished. Everybody accepts Milarepa was pretty yogi. But he didn't need comfort. He was able to go off into the wilderness and just meditate. He didn't even need food. So if you have got all your worldly possessions, and everything you need in the world to function, and you're not able to give that up, and you're talking about being awakened, then it's kind of laughable. It's better to be honest with yourself. So, like I said, I'm going back to Nepal on Tuesday. It's going to be strange. It was strange coming here. It was a culture shock. I mean, I said this to my friends, that I experienced some kind of culture shock when coming back to the West. And they thought it was strange, because to them, I was born in the West, so why would I be shocked? But, when you live in an environment for 12 years that's solely focused on spiritual practice, 24/7, there's nothing else to do. You eat, you do the toilet, you occasionally wash, but since early in the morning to late at night, all you're doing is prostrating, meditating, studying, debating. Everything you do is about the spiritual path. And so to return to the West, where it's completely the opposite, 24/7, everyone is just thinking about their mundane concerns. If they're working, it's about how they can get enough money to get by, when they're going to pay their rent, how they're going to get the next contract. If they're retired, it's about will the money last until they die, and how can they enjoy the rest of their life. And when it's over, it's finished. And just walking down the street, the difference is poignant. Everything is geared towards materialism. It's like getting what we need and what we want, things we like. Our entire capitalistic system is based around human desire. It's fed by that. But I'm not going to go on anymore. I've got to go and finish packing. I'm going to try and record maybe one more video before I go. And also I'm going to try and record some stuff when I'm on the road. Especially from Nepal, from Boda, from the stupa in Boda. So I hope to see you there. Thank you for listening. And see you later.